Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Emiliana, and today I'm with my friend Larry. We'll be talking about climate change in older adults. Just to introduce myself, I'm a third year student here in St. Thomas University. I'm majoring in gerontology and minoring in psychology, Spanish, and Italian. And I'm a huge advocate for older adults. Um, Today I'm joined by Larry, who has been a really good friend, and we're going to be talking about climate change. Larry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, name is Larry DeLong, and I would fit into that category as an older Canadian. Now, I'm going to, right off the top, I'll claim I'm not an expert in climate change, but I'm looking forward to trying to tackle these questions that Emiliana would have. So, with that, back to you.
Awesome. I'm deciding to talk about climate change because it's something that has been really evident around us, and there are some changes that I believe have been affecting us. Have you realized anything different from when you were younger and related to climate change or any type of disaster, natural disaster?
Yes, I guess I would say that, the hard science is there that, verifies that climate change is happening. Even locally, I can point to some recent examples, sort of extreme heat. I can point to some examples of sort of coastal flooding, and the number of occurrences in my recollection are certainly increasing today as opposed to 20, 30 years ago.
Totally. Has this affected you directly, or anyone that you any story that you know from someone close to you?
Yes, I would say that personally, I think there's direct effects on older Canadians or older people, and there's indirect effects. On the direct side, I mean, the most obvious one to me is the effect on vulnerable populations, including older people and children and maybe disabled people. And it's sort of come to conclusion that those types of populations who are not contributing to climate change in an appreciable way are actually the targets that are being most affected by climate change. And right off the top, I'm not there yet, but I know some folks that even in this summer where we had an extreme heat event, it did affect some friends of mine who have respiratory problems or cardiovascular problems.
Okay.
An extreme heat event, without the benefit of cooling, can be quite dramatic on older Canadians with respiratory, cardiovascular, and pre-existing conditions, and in fact quite dramatic on young children if they don't have the mechanisms to regulate that heat. So yeah, I have seen that, no question.
Oh yeah, totally. I believe that those different things have different effects on older adults, and it's definitely a vulnerable population. Um, I believe that here in Canada, we are not really used to the extreme heat, so I realized that there's not a lot of people that are ready for those climate changes, right? And what do you think we can do to help this? Do you think there, for example, having cooling areas over the summer, or what would be your thoughts on what can we do to help this problem?
I guess I can speak from some experience here, a little bit of experience. I'm also a counselor, sort of a town counselor in a village, and we're about 2 years old, but we're coming to the realization, and we're just in the progress of developing heating and cooling centers. And again, as I say, this past summer was kind of a wake-up call to us to, because not everybody can afford air conditioning.
Yeah.
Um, I think you're right. In this part of the country, historically this has not been an issue. But if you look at places like Southern Ontario, where the electrical grid really can't keep up with the demand for power in the summer months, that's going to leave those populations vulnerable. So from my point of view, and the city of Fredericton does a good job with cooling centers, so I think cooling centers are something that needs to be done and we need to take more seriously. The power grid, even here in New Brunswick, there's a danger that the power grid is going to reach a point, where we have to look at sort of rolling blackouts, etc. And that's going to mean an effect on some of our vulnerable populations. So we've got to be thinking about that as well, how we generate our power. We've got to be thinking about things like, maybe more pronounced in Western Canada, but drought. Drought's going to lead to maybe lower yields for agricultural crops, only further leading to food insecurity. So these are all sort of interconnected issues that I wish I had the answers, but I don't. The only thing I can say as I look at the Canadian response is that I hear, there's money being collected through a carbon tax, but I don't know whether there's sort of a complete strategy to deal with this. It's sort of, we collect money through a carbon tax. I, for one, really don't know the result of that. Is it being effective in meeting these challenges? But I do sense that we really don't have a comprehensive strategy beyond collecting taxes.
Right. So what you're saying is that you would like to know what's the plan? We collect the money and then what's going to be happening, as a long-term or short-term solutions.
Well, and I'm not sure if it's current, but the last time I checked, although Canada emits less than 2% of global carbon emissions, we are one of the highest carbon emitting populations in the world. So, where's the strategy? So we've been collecting carbon taxes, fine, but what's the result of that? Our emissions are, although low globally, they're still continuing to rise.
Yeah. I think also that seniors bring a critical assets to the climate change movement, because older adults have a little bit of more time, political influence, and some financial resources that can be used to pressure pension funds to, be working on this type of things. So, do you have any friends or you yourself that do anything for climate change?
I'm sort of a bit of ashamed to say this, but in my world, in our household, I guess what we've done is we've eliminated heating with oil, and we have replaced that with a central heat pump system. So, a step, but a minor step. To be honest with you, as I look around New Brunswick, despite the levy of carbon taxes, I don't see much of a behavior change in our driving habits. I don't see much of a behavior change in the types of vehicles we're purchasing. So I'm not sure really this has sunk in, to the general population. We're still driving the types of vehicles that we used to, and we're driving them as often as we used to. So, that's... Are we really doing what we need to do? And the second thing I would say is, carbon tax is primarily aimed at the consumer. Is it working? And, you know, our, what are we doing vis-a-vis the corporate sector? I don't know the answer to that question, which would be the primary emitters of carbon.
Yeah, do you think perhaps that if we had a better transportation system, meaning like better bus routes that could go to where your house is or other, let's say, far away households in New Brunswick and around Fredericton, would that be better if we had like a bus that goes, let's say, to Waramacto or something like every day, so we don't just leave alone all those rural areas around Fredericton?
Now, big cities have a decided advantage because they're able to develop mass transit systems because they have larger populations. The challenge we face in a province like New Brunswick is we have a relatively sparse population, and really the financial investment it would take to do what you suggest, I'm not sure we're there yet without massive subsidies. The Fredericton City bus route really serves the city. I live about 12 kilometers from downtown Fredericton, and you won't find a bus that comes that far. So we in those situations are really relegated to private automobiles. We don't carpool very well. We love our cars, so there's kind of a situation that you're right. I think that would be ideal, but the financial investment of trying to do that in still what is a rural population in New Brunswick is very difficult.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, I mentioned, I guess, of all the financial influence that this has, right? Especially with investments and whatnot. So how do you think older adults can use the power to push for all the changes that need to be done? Like, do you think older adults could have a valuable voice on climate change, on making something different?
Boy, that's a difficult question.
And I'm asking this because the youth is often targeted as the ones that are talking about climate change, but I don't think this is necessarily true. I think that older adults could do as a valuable work advocating for climate change as the youth.
My reaction to that would be the cohort that may have an effect there would be the recent sort of baby boomer cohort, which has done very well, could have political influence, and I can see that cohort maybe coming to the table. Older Canadians that have mobility issues, health issues, sometimes very difficult to get those folks politically engaged. Let me say it that way.
Yeah. Although they're really affected by the different disasters, natural disasters that could be going on, right? Like wildfires, extreme heat waves, all those type of things. And we don't often think about them. I believe that, for example, when there's extreme flooding or the ocean level rises or whatnot, they're just by themselves in their houses, and perhaps if they have any mobility issues, what do we do? All those type of things, I think we're not thoughtful about those things. And so what message would you send to other older adults who might not be concerned about this topic?
Well, again, I say the science is there that indicates climate change now and in the future will have continuing effects, and that revolves around energy issues, it revolves around health issues, it's around food security issues, mobility issues. So, you've got to make your voice heard. And I would say that in Canada, I don't see kind of a holistic strategy for this. So maybe those cohort of folks could be advocating or demanding even, a more comprehensive strategy that takes into account some of the issues you just mentioned. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I see the collection of taxes, but beyond that, I simply don't see a strategy.
Yeah. Would you like the government or big organizations to share information about what's climate change and what we can do to help it? How would you like to see this information communicated, specifically to older adults, so it's something understandable? Because I know that sometimes for me it's super complex. If you log into the internet, could be really complex, hard to understand information. So what can we do? In which ways do you think we can communicate to older populations what's going on with climate change and how can we help it?
Well, maybe I can answer it this way. About a week ago, I watched a CBC panel on climate change, and the panelists spent the whole 20 minutes just talking about the politics of climate change, slogans, and arguing about sort of whose politics should win out. I didn't really hear much from that panel about the health effects, the on vulnerable populations. I didn't hear anything about that. So, we've got to get beyond sort of the superficial political level. And, I think we need more healthcare professionals. I think we need to be listening to more healthcare professionals and having healthcare professionals providing us with, as you say, sort of understandable information, potential solutions, rather than sort of the panels that I'm seeing that I agree are complex, they're politically oriented, and really not getting us very far.
For sure. And sometimes when it's something as politically oriented, people are not interested because we don't want to talk about politics. We want to talk about climate change and what we can do about it. So I think that maybe having just easy to understand information delivered to the media that older adults consume, if it's Facebook, if it's newspapers, whatever you decide to use, but something that's accessible and that you understand, then we might be doing a change. Can you think of anything that you would like to see? You consume podcasts or social media, or what do you think could be an easy and affordable way to communicate this?
Well, for me, again, being an older person, I would like to see information coming from a sort of a panel of healthcare providers, disability experts. It could be Facebook. I know Facebook and Instagram are the way young people consume information. For me, I like to have that information personally or in print. As you say, understandable. Maybe we could have more panels from healthcare practitioners and disability practitioners proposing solutions rather than politicians who are sort of at each other's throats.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. And what do you think about the potential for intergenerational collaboration between older adults and younger climate activists? Do you see that happening? How do you think?
I'm not well, just as a general statement, I'm not sure that as a society we benefit or we strive to benefit from the wisdom of those that have gone before us. I would even say universities aren't there yet. I would say the corporate sector's not there yet. There's a wealth of information, whether it be the effects of climate change or community living or whatever that's housed in the brains of older Canadians that could benefit. I just don't think we strive to use it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we live in a really ageist society. So it's really, for me, it's really frustrating because we don't tend to listen to all the things that come from experience. So I feel like oftentimes we have this feeling of us knowing everything through whether if it's like the internet or our own colleagues, and we don't tend to go and cross that line of talking and understanding the potential and the benefits of intergenerational relationships. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think there's much benefit to be gained, but I don't see it happening very much.
Yeah.
But your question reminds me of a of a visit I made years ago to it was a retirement home, St. Anne's Court here in Fredericton, and I was talking to a lady who was a resident there. Come to find out, in her working days, she was a French teacher at McGill University, and so pleased to learn that she was providing French classes for other residents of that facility. Now, maybe not intergenerational, but certainly using her abilities kind of to benefit others. So I think there's a huge potential in the potential use intergenerational knowledge on both sides of that spectrum, young people's knowledge and those that have gone before them, for positive gain. I just don't think we use it.
Totally. So, well, Larry, it was wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope we do this more than for a school project, for us to chat and maybe share with others this type of conversations that could be really beneficial, just, to talk and share with others the importance of listening to each other. I think that's really important, and nowadays we don't tend to do it often. So I really just want to say thank you, and just as a reminder to the listeners here, the climate crisis is the defining issue of our time, and seniors have a crucial role in this. So we need to get involved all together as a society, because we're all here and we all want a better place.
Amen.
Thanks, Larry.
We didn't have cooling centers, so that we've got to get on that. Like even recycling programs, I would say I'm not throwing these things away anymore. I'm saving them and taking them to recycling centers.
Me too. Yeah.
So in thrifting, yeah. So at the end of the day, the government's trying to change behavior by taxing us. And it really hasn't worked, because people are still driving their great big pickups and, really, we haven't changed behavior. Is there another way to change behavior? See, that's why I say there's really no strategy beyond we'll hit them in the pocketbook.
Yeah. Do you think about this often, about climate change and what would happen?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking about it in context of the power grid. If I had $30,000, I'd put a solar installation on my roof, so I generate my own power through a renewable means. I believe strongly in renewables. You got to figure out the finances of getting to renewables.
Yeah.
Talking about cars, I'm talking about power.
Yeah, because that's the other thing, right? If you don't have enough money, you can't have cooling in your house, you can't have power in your house for those specific things.
And we never really did get to it, but beyond that, like what you just said, to those vulnerable populations, then leads into the mental issues.
Yeah.
The worry all the time. You're on edge, you're apprehensive. There's a cyclone coming, it's going to hit us.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
And the effects of mental health, it's really interesting that you touch on that point, because mental health is so important. And in older adults, I think, or we have this idea that they like their mental health's never affected, and
Yeah.
that's not true.
Well, we've done a poor job of mental health across the board in New Brunswick. I hate to say this, but once you get to a certain age, it just becomes about warehousing. You know, people go to homes and sometimes their kids don't even visit them anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just considered sort of non-entities or out of sight, out of mind. That's what I'm trying to say.
And that happens. I mean, I used to work in a nursing home, and that happens,
Mm.
and that's extremely sad and frustrating because at the end, they are human beings.
You know, food insecurity you talk about, and that's a big issue these days. I guess you could, like, even Meals on Wheels that provide those low-cost meals to people that can't make them for themselves, but they want to stay in their home. You know what I mean? And I know they went from an environmentally friendly packaging and all that type of stuff. Waste is another issue that's quite prevalent in our society.
Yeah.
We're wasteful. In jest, I say we have too much money.
We have too much money,
Well, yeah, well,
like individually, or
yeah,
like the government
individually,
has.
like for instance, there are people that would pay $100 a month to have a storage unit off-site to store stuff that they don't use. $100 a month to store stuff they don't use.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds
And that's
a
a
little bit
growing
ridiculous.
business.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. We have too much money. We have too much stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That's awesome. Well,
I wish I had said per capita.
I recorded this, so I can like sneak it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want, if you're able to edit it, we are less than 2% of global emitters, but per capita, we're very high. We're big global emitters because we just haven't changed our behavior. Despite all those taxes, we haven't changed our behavior. Really.
Yeah. We gotta change it at some point, because if not.
Well, that's the issue. How do you?
Yeah.
And maybe quite frankly, maybe it takes more than politicians.
It's also like a societal issue, I would say. So, I don't know.
Well, you know, look what happened to that Dr. Fauci there in the U.S. during the COVID period.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's the U.S. Top doctor, top scientists on infectious diseases, and he pretty well got blackballed by the politicians because they didn't really want to hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be larger than just the political class. And how you get them there, I don't, you know, it's got to be through pressure at the ballot box.
So, yeah.
Thanks for listening. Bye.